Hello.
We're both wearing gray.
We are both
Are
wearing gray.
any of
We're
you wearing gray? What class is this again?
7th and 8th grade.
Hey guys, none of you showed up for your meetings today, so that's fun. 7th grade. Looking at you.
This is filmed in advance, so no problem if you showed up to whatever you had today. Anyways, today we are putting that behind us, and we're talking about medieval homes and diseases. That's what we're talking about today.
Love that.
Yes, I am.
You know, I like all the things about the medieval. Like, I think it's very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Do they have
once again, medieval would mean Middle Ages. Same thing, same time.
Do they have any towns that are like replicas of it? You can like go and.
Like in Germany and stuff like that. I mean, Disneyland's castle kind of like that, but not really, because there's no like diseases and you can't really go inside of it or anything. But yeah. All right, so medieval homes and diseases. Let's get going.
Woo.
So first, talking about the homes, they were often usually multiple stories tall. So if you lived in a town inside the Middle Ages, your home had multiple stories, usually 2 stories. And it was very, in Suriname, for instance, there were really nice houses next to really poor houses.
Yeah.
Wasn't so in the Middle Ages. Instead, rich all lived in their area, usually in the more center part of town, and on the edges near the walls would be where the poorer homes are.
Where the castles.
What?
The castles. There are no castles in the Middle Ages?
I'm saying towards the wall, on the wall, where the wall is where the poor people live, on the centers where the rich people live. Yeah.
Because we talked about that with moats and stuff, I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
The average person usually live above where they worked, so the top story, if you can see in this little house right here, you would live in this part, and the bottom part would be where you worked, so that's how the Middle Ages would work.
A lot of people do that here too.
Yes, there are some people that do that here, so similar to that, but that's generally how it worked. And then you could see too, we couldn't read, so you'd also hang a sign out like this, so this is a barrel saying this guy, makes barrels. Because people couldn't read, so that's why all those signs always had pictures on them, because people couldn't read, so you'd have to have some sort of picture to tell them where there is.
That's so interesting.
And I don't know where this is, but there is one around today, apparently. You can walk around, so look at that.
Oh yeah, because that guy's definitely not from the Middle Ages.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have baseball caps back then.
Yeah, nope.
The average person usually lived above where they worked. Talked about that. So yeah, those are the homes.
Cool.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's go down to the dirty towns, okay?
Ooh.
And towns were very dirty places, very gross places. I think you brought it up in a previous video that they would oftentimes just throw their trash out in the street, right?
Their poop.
Yeah.
It's gross.
So here, right, I put it in the trash bin, and then I tie up the trash bag, put it outside, and it gets picked up every Tuesday and Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, you would just get your trash, and once your trash bucket was full or your poop was full, you just toss it out the window onto the street where people would walk.
So disgusting. And
hopefully you wouldn't hit anyone when you threw it out, if you were considerate. They usually also rarely washed their hands, and they took bath less than once a week. Which in Suriname, if you took a bath less than once a week, they would string you up here.
Hey, I get judged for doing it once a day.
Yeah, some people take it way more than once a day here. But yeah, so they're very unclean, very dirty. They didn't think baths helped in any way. They all very smelly. You can just kind of imagine walking through town, just like the gross smell. And
did it not rain?
This picture right here. It did rain, but you can see this picture, right? The streets are kind of like the trash is kind of pushed off to the side into like little piles that just sits and decomposes with bugs and dogs and stuff going through it.
Why would you want to live in the center of town then? Well,
the center of town at least wasn't near the walls where there was even worse. The center of town would be slightly more clean. You have nicer buildings and stuff like that.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyways, so that brings us to diseases, okay? Because they were so dirty, diseases spread very quickly. Turns out washing your hands keeps diseases away. If there's anything we've learned this COVID crisis, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these diseases couldn't be cured back then. They didn't really have professional doctors or any sort of medical service.
Because they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, they didn't know anything about viruses or bacteria or anything like that. They simply thought you got sick. Oh, maybe it's because you're smelling bad things, and give you like a.
Wait, I read about this also. Religion was a huge thing, so they thought it was like they did something bad.
Yeah, they might think a religious reason, something like that, or they find something to blame it in. When we talked about the Black Death, they blame it on the Jews because they're like, oh, there's people not Christians. Maybe God's mad at us for that. Let's kill all of them, which isn't good. Yeah. So people who had diseases, if you got really sick, they would isolate you. They'd put that big red X on the door. Have you ever seen those doctors that have like the big scary masks?
Like the crow in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, like Beauty and the Beast.
The real
looks
one.
like a crow, yeah. Anyway, so the diseases, pretty bad. And the Black Death, and we're going to talk more about the Black Death a little bit later, but the Black Death, which was also called the bubonic plague, was the worst disease in medieval Europe, and probably one of the worst diseases ever in the history. So, like COVID has nothing to the Black Death. Black Death, about 2/3 of the population were killed.
2/3.
Yes.
2 out of every 3 people.
Mhm,
That's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah. And they would just
Nothing
take these
would
people
go
out and dump them in these giant graves, and we've dug these up now and seen all their like the bones and stuff like
So
that. Just
horrible.
mass death. Yeah. And this disease spread on the backs of fleas. It came from Central Asia. That's where they think it came from. It traveled all the way to Europe, and it basically just wiped through Europe and all these crowded, disgusting, dirty towns where they weren't staying clean, they weren't washing, and fleas were everywhere. They'd bite people, and the disease would spread, and lots of people died because of it.
2/3. That's
2/3, yeah.
insane.
So like I think our class right now has 12 kids in it. So that would be that 8 of them died, and then 4 would still be alive.
That's
so that's
insane.
it is insane, yeah. Lots of death. It killed a ton of people. So
Were the rich more likely to live?
usually it was pretty equal actually. Rich and poor died pretty equally. Because they all lived in the kind of same areas, close to each other. So yeah. So this brings us to medieval homes and diseases. Our favorite tea time.
But today I don't have tea because I didn't make tea, and so this is like it's like milk and caramel and
Dessert.
ice. It's like a dessert-ish thing because I wanted something sweet today. I have a sweet tooth, Mr. Magera would say. Just a little one.
You have 32 sweet teeth. Not a single bitter tooth, normal tooth in there. Tooth kook.
I love chocolate. If you ever want to suck up, chocolate is the best way. Anyhow, want to hear it?
Yeah, let's give us the tea.
Okay, so I chose something that, because we're doing another video on the Black Plague, right?
Yeah.
So I decided not to do one on diseases right now because we're going to talk a lot about diseases. Anyway, so this is kind of an interesting, fun little tea thing. So back then, in the Middle Ages, the wedding ceremony, you didn't actually have a wedding ceremony. Like, have you ever heard the term shotgun wedding?
Yeah.
So this was like a literal, like what would happen is, but we're not talking about the higher class. The higher class would actually have
Yeah,
ceremonies.
big weddings.
And
yeah.
usually they didn't get married for love. They would get married for unions. Like, oh, we want this family and this family to be related,
Yeah.
so they're going to
The
get married.
parents decided kind
The
of
parents,
arranged marriage.
it was all very arranged marriage. You never, like, really married for love. But anyway, but the lower class, what would happen is you could literally be on the street and it could be, all you had to do was make a vow to each other. So you could literally be on the street and be like, oh, do you want to get married? And you could get married in that moment. But the problem with that, what the church didn't like, is that there was no way to prove it because you could literally be in bed with someone, which is definitely against, lots of things. But they'd be like, oh no, we got married right before we were in bed. But there was no way to prove it. It would just literally be turned like, will you marry me? I vow that you're my husband.
Oh, yeah. I vow that you're my wife.
Boom.
Sorry, anyways. Wow, how we got married. Dun, dun,
That's
dun,
literally
dun,
what it would
dun,
be,
dun,
though.
dun,
Really, really
dun.
fast. That's what I read
That's not the
anyway.
wedding march.
Dun, 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 dun. No, it's a dun, 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 dun,
okay,
dun, dun.
yeah, okay.
We didn't actually walk down to the wedding march.
We walked down to a different song, but that's all right.
Something.
Yeah, all right. So that was some pretty good tea. Some
I
pretty
thought it
good
was. I thought it
sweet
was
tea.
really
That's not
interesting.
Really tea, it's a sweet drink. Yeah. All right. You guys have a great day, and we will see you soon.
Bye, guys.